Isaiah 6 gives us an incredible picture of the worship of God in heaven, where the seraphim, the burning ones, cry out, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of His glory." That's Isaiah 6:3. And in this glimpse of the worship of heaven, it is given to us again in Revelation 4:8, where each of the four living creatures, day and night, never stop saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty, who was and is to come." God is holiness at His core and in His essence. And these scenes from the Bible tell us that these special creations cry out this holy, holy, holy continually. Now that Trinitarian repetition of holy is significant because it's the only thing that's repeated around God's throne in this way. He is faithful, yes, He's powerful and wise, but in His essence, He is holy. Now what is God's holiness? Well, He is separate, He is other, He's pure, He's untouched by the faults and weakness of other things. He's completely other than His creation. There are only two things in all existence: God and creation. God and everything else. And that utter, unique, separate purity is His holiness. Out of this flow all of His other attributes. Everything else is unfaithful eventually, but God is faithfulness unmixed. Everything else has a spot of corruption, but God is purity unmixed. Everything else that has its light and its darkness, its yin and its yang, but God is completely pure, utterly alone in His degree of perfection. God is so glorious in His holiness that to be in the presence of God's complete holiness would literally kill our physical bodies, as if we had suddenly been transported to within 100 miles of the sun. You couldn't physically or spiritually take the glory of His holiness in your present form. Now, I don't mean to suggest that God's holiness is a negative thing, as though it was a source of pain or fear. On the contrary, the Bible tells us to worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. The holiness of God is so glorious, so overwhelming and joyful, so explosively brilliant, that its beauty and goodness is what's overwhelming. In humans, there's this line where joy gets so overwhelming that it's close to something like terror. Like the joyful terror as you're about to descend the world's tallest roller coaster. It takes your breath away and your stomach knots up. The joyous terror of God's holiness would simply overwhelm us every way, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It's not so bad that it's scary, that it's so good that it's marvelously scary. And that's the holiness of our great God. Today, let's worship Him as they do in heaven, in the beauty of His holiness.